Gearsville's quiet mechanic. Gearsville wasn't much to look at. Dust devils danced in the cracked asphalt of Main Street, a perpetual ballet of grit and tumbleweeds. Faded paint peeled from the storefronts like sunburnt skin, revealing glimpses of forgotten dreams. Leo Maxwell's garage, Maxwell's Mechanics, wasn't immune to the town's decay. The sign above the roll-up door hung crookedly, one corner perpetually threatening to detach and join the dust devils. Inside, the air hung thick with the scent of oil, gasoline, and a faint, metallic tang that spoke of hard work and stubborn engines. Leo, a man built more for comfort than speed, wiped grease from his hands with a rag already stained beyond recognition. He was humming a tuneless melody, the kind that burrowed into your brain and refused to leave, as he tinkered with a bicycle leaning precariously against a workbench overflowing with tools. "Almost got her now, Mrs. Henderson," he said, his voice soft, barely audible over the clatter of a wrench against metal. Mrs. Henderson, a woman whose wrinkles told stories of a life well lived, beamed at him. "Oh, Leo, you're a lifesaver. My Ethel is my only transportation to the market these days." She patted the bicycle seat affectionately. Leo tightened the last bolt, spun the wheel, and watched it wear smoothly. "Just a loose chain, ma'am. And I adjusted the brakes for you." He straightened up, a shy smile playing on his lips. "All set. How much do I owe you, dear?" Leo hesitated, glancing at the worn tires and the rusty frame. "Don't worry about it, Mrs. Henderson. Just happy to help." Mrs. Henderson wouldn't hear of it, pressing a crumpled $5 bill into his hand. "Nonsense, Leo. You deserve it. You're the only honest mechanic in this town." She winked, then carefully wheeled Ethel out into the fading sunlight. Leo watched her go, the $5 bill feeling heavier than it should in his palm. He knew he should have charged her more, parts alone probably cost that. But he just couldn't bring himself to do it. Seeing her happy, pedaling away on her mended Ethel was payment enough. Almost. The afternoon drifted into evening, the sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. No other customers came. Leo swept the floor, the rhythmic swish of the broom a lonely counterpoint to the silence of the garage. He inventoried his parts, noting the dwindling supply of spark plugs and the near-empty can of carburetor cleaner. He needed to order more, but the thought of dipping into his already meager savings made his stomach clench. He switched off the lights, plunging the garage into darkness, save for the sliver of moonlight that crept under the roll-up door. As he turned the key in the lock, a wave of discouragement washed over him. Gearsville was dying, and Maxwell's Mechanics was dying with it. He was good at what he did, maybe even the best, but good wasn't always enough. Sometimes it felt like being a decent mechanic in Gearsville was like being a master sculptor in a town that only valued rocks. He walked home, the crunch of gravel under his boots the only sound in the stillness. He looked up at the stars, a million tiny pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. He wondered if somewhere out there, beyond the dust and despair of Gearsville, there was a place where his skills would be appreciated, where honest work was rewarded. He sighed, the sound lost in the whisper of the wind. He doubted it. The red convertible's arrival. The sputtering began as a mere tremor beneath the engine's song. Clara pressed on, urging the vintage cherry-red convertible onward. The desert sun hammered down on the aged leather, scorching her legs despite the wind's efforts. She was so close. Then, with a final, agonizing shudder, silence. A curse escaped Clara's lips, swallowed by the vast Nevada emptiness. The car glided to a halt on the roadside, a vibrant wound against the pale earth. She slammed a palm against the wheel, frustration bubbling to the surface. From his garage doorway, a time-worn sanctuary in a forgotten town, Leo Maxwell observed. Another blown tire, likely. Or a clueless tourist with an empty tank. He knew the drill. He leaned against the frame, harsh sunlight carving deeper lines into his weathered face. Business was stagnant, hope even more so. He watched a woman unfold herself from the vehicle. Unexpected. Tall, garbed in a pristine white suit that seemed utterly incongruous, her face obscured by dark glasses. Her movements possessed a poised elegance, a sharp contrast to the wheezing machine she'd arrived in. Clara approached, the click of her heels sharp against the cracked asphalt. "Leo Maxwell?" Leo straightened. "That depends. Who's asking?" She removed her sunglasses, revealing jade eyes, ringed with fatigue. "Clara Beaumont. Word is, you're the best wrench around." Leo scoffed, a brittle, humorless sound. "Word travels fast, these days." He nodded towards the car. Trouble brewing? You could say that. It's a 67 E-Type Jag. She's been persnickety. Clara stroked the crimson paint, a fleeting tenderness in her gaze. Persnickety barely scratches the surface. What's the ailment? Leo inquired, already anticipating a headache. Engine woes, obviously, but persistent ones. 3 mechanics have sworn they could resurrect her. 3 have failed. Spectacularly. Her voice remained even, yet Leo detected a thread of desperation beneath the polished veneer. So, what makes me so special? He folded his arms, a silent challenge. Clara met his gaze directly. Because I'm out of options. And because, frankly, I need this damn car fixed. It's important. A beat. More important than I can articulate just now. Leo scrutinized her. The couture suit, the classic car, the designer shades. But beneath the artifice, he glimpsed something else. A raw vulnerability, a quiet sorrow mirroring his own fading resolve. Maybe he wasn't the only one running on empty. A promise and a challenge. All right, Leo said, wiping his hands on a rag already blackened with grease. He looked Clara square in the eye, the desert sun reflecting off the dust motes dancing in the air between them. I'll do my best. Can't promise miracles, especially not on a beast like that. Clara nodded, a flicker of something unreadable passing across her face. Relief, maybe? Or perhaps just the calculated acceptance of a gamble she was willing to take. That's all I ask. He circled the car again, a low whistle escaping his lips. The engine compartment was a tangled mess of wires, chrome, and unfamiliar components. It was more sophisticated than anything he'd seen this side of the Mississippi. German engineering, he guessed, judging by the markings on some of the parts. This wasn't just about replacing a spark plug or tightening a belt. This was open-heart surgery on a mechanical thoroughbred. He grabbed his toolbox, the metal cold against his calloused hand. The familiar weight grounded him, anchoring him to the task ahead. He started with the basics, checking the fuel lines, tracing the wiring harness, trying to make sense of the alien layout. The air hung thick and heavy, smelling of oil, gasoline, and the dry, metallic tang of the desert. Sweat beaded on his forehead, stinging his eyes. Hours blurred. The sun climbed higher, baking the corrugated iron of the garage roof. Leo muttered under his breath, wrestling with a stubborn bolt. He consulted the repair manual Clara had provided, its pages filled with diagrams and technical jargon that seemed deliberately designed to confuse. Frustration gnawed at him. He was used to solving problems with a combination of intuition and brute force, but this engine demanded a different approach, patience, precision, and a whole lot of head-scratching. He tried the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. A plume of black smoke billowed from the exhaust. He swore, a quiet, guttural sound. Back to square one. Or maybe even further back. He felt Clara's gaze on him, steady and unwavering, from where she sat on an upturned crate near the garage door. He refused to meet her eyes. He didn't want to see the disappointment, the confirmation of her own doubts reflected back at him. He was just a poor mechanic in a forgotten town. What had he been thinking, promising her anything? He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. He couldn't let the complexity intimidate him. He had to break it down, piece by piece, until he understood every valve, every circuit, every precisely engineered component. He grabbed a wrench and went back to work. The day was far from over. The wrench's doubts. The sharp report of Marty, the wrench Wilson's impact gun ricocheted around the sun-baked square, an abrasive counterpoint to his guffaws. Leo, brow furrowed as he battled the bulky carburetor, felt heat prickle his skin. Marty sauntered over, flourishing a greasy rag with mock ceremony. Still wrestling that dinosaur, Maxwell? His tone was laced with disdain. That contraption's been sputtering since before I shed my training wheels. Be kinder to yourself and sell it for parts. He jabbed a thumb at the vintage Ford Fairlane languishing in Leo's bay, its cerulean paint flaking like old wallpaper. Some relics are best left to rust, kid. You just don't possess the magic touch. Leo bit back a sharp reply. Arguing with Marty was like trying to reason with a tornado. Instead, he tightened his grip on the wrench, the cool steel a small solace against his damp palm. Marty's skill was undeniable, his methods. Well, brutal. Speed and profit trumped finesse in his world. Marty's laugh boomed, a grating sound like rocks tumbling downhill. Heard the Beaumont dame gave you her business. Rich folk must be blind, choosing you over the master. Their loss. He spat a brown stream into the dirt, a final, contemptuous flick of dismissal. Leo watched him swagger back to his gleaming garage, envy gnawing at his insides. A cold tendril of doubt snaked into his thoughts. Perhaps Marty was right. Maybe he was chasing a ghost. Maybe Clara Beaumont, with her tailored clothes and confident bearing, had misjudged his abilities. The bell above the door announced a visitor, briefly dispelling the encroaching gloom. Clara Beaumont stood in the entrance, bathed in the amber light of the setting sun, strands of gold catching fire in her hair. She looked weary. The polished veneer he'd noticed before seemed to have faded, revealing the quiet fatigue beneath. "How's it progressing?" Her voice was softer, less certain than he recalled. Leo hesitated. "Slowly," he admitted. "It's being difficult." Clara approached, her heels clicking a measured rhythm on the concrete. She didn't inspect the engine, didn't offer unwanted advice. Instead, her gaze met his, direct and unwavering. "I chose you, Leo, because I sensed something lacking in Marty. Integrity. And a genuine dedication to the craft. Don't let him undermine you." She paused, then a faint, almost wistful smile played on her lips. Sometimes, she murmured, the most rewarding things are the most challenging to salvage. With a slight inclination of her head, she departed, the bell above the door ringing with a renewed cheer. Leo stared at the Fairlane, a tangled mess of wires and greasy metal. He picked up his wrench, its heft familiar and reassuring. Marty's taunts lingered, but Clara's words ignited a spark. He adjusted the lamp, bathing the engine block in a stark, revealing light. He'd work until dawn if necessary. He'd prove them both wrong. He'd prove it to himself. Grandpa's secret. The afternoon sun hammered down on the Fairlane's hood, turning the greasy schematic into a shimmering mirage of smudged lines. The carburetor. Leo's nemesis. He'd wrestled with countless carburetors, coaxing them back to life, but this one was a mule-headed beast. He raked his hands through his already wild hair, smearing a fresh stripe of oil on his brow. A seed of doubt sprouted. Was this beyond him? Were some engines destined for the scrap heap, beyond redemption? The hood slammed shut with a resounding thwack that momentarily shattered the garage's stillness. He needed a break, a distraction, anything to unscramble his thoughts. Drifting towards the cluttered workbench, a landscape of tools and cold coffee, his gaze snagged on a faded photograph. A younger Leo, grinning like a fool, perched on a dusty pickup, Grandpa Max beside him, a hand on his shoulder and mischief dancing in his eyes. Max, the mechanical maestro. He could breathe life into anything with gears and gasoline. The hours spent in this sanctuary of grease and ingenuity flooded back, watching, absorbing Max's bottomless knowledge. Manuals were for those who lacked faith in their instincts, Max had declared, relying instead on feel, intuition, a near telepathic connection to the iron hearts he mended. A wave of warmth laced with the ghost of Max's pipe smoke engulfed him. He could almost hear that gravelly voice, bubbling with humor. "Leo, sometimes the answers ain't printed. Sometimes you gotta know where to look." Where to look? The phrase echoed in the cavern of his mind. Max possessed an uncanny ability to unearth hidden gremlins, identifying overlooked components even seasoned pros missed, engineers' afterthoughts, he'd called them. Leo's eyes snapped back to the Fairlane, the carburetor. What if? What if something specific to this engine, this recalcitrant machine, had escaped Max's general wisdom? He recalled a similar Ford, Max muttering about a pressure relief valve, deceptively concealed. He snatched the schematic, his focus sharpened. A pressure relief valve. Where would they hide it? It wouldn't be in plain sight, it wouldn't be labeled, it would be secreted away. His fingers traced the fuel line towards the carburetor, then back to the fuel pump. Max had mentioned a tiny, almost invisible recess near the pump, intended to relieve excess pressure. Grabbing a flashlight, he knelt, peering into the engine's shadowy depths. Dust motes swirled in the beam as he ran his fingers over the fuel pump, searching for any anomaly. And then he felt it. A nearly seamless indentation. He pressed, and a spring-loaded valve clicked open with a whisper. Hope surged, a jolt of pure adrenaline. Could this be it? The key to this stubborn beast's heart? He wiped away the grime, revealing a minute-obstructed opening. A thin wire from his toolbox probed the opening, dislodging a fragment of debris. He straightened, his heart hammering against his ribs. No guarantees, but a feeling resonated within him. A good feeling. A feeling Grandpa Max would applaud. He returned to the driver's seat, hand poised above the ignition. This time, no hesitation, no doubt. Just a quiet certainty, fueled by memory and a hidden valve. The hidden adjustment. Leo wiped a streak of grease across his forehead, leaving a dark smudge that mirrored the doubt clouding his mind. The Ford Fairlane idled roughly, a persistent cough rattling through its aging frame. He'd cleaned the carburetor 3 times, checked the fuel lines, and even replaced the spark plugs. Nothing. It still sounded like a cement mixer gargling gravel. He remembered his grandfather, a ghost of a smile flickering across his lips. There's always a hidden adjustment, Leo. The one they don't want you to find. Right? The hidden adjustment. Granddad always spoke in riddles, but Leo knew what he meant. Manufacturers sometimes tweak things, undocumented changes lost to time. He leaned into the engine bay, the smell of gasoline and hot metal filling his nostrils. It was a long shot, but he was out of ideas. He ran his fingers along the carburetor body, searching for anything unusual. A stray screw, a capped-off port, anything. He found it tucked away on the underside, almost completely obscured by a fuel line, a small, brass screw with a tiny locking nut. He'd almost missed it. This was it. Granddad's trick. Leo remembered watching him, a small boy perched on a stool as his grandfather adjusted similar screws on ancient tractors. Feel the engine, Leo, he'd said, listen to its heart. He loosened the locking nut with a miniature wrench, his movements precise. He hesitated, then, remembering his grandfather's words, turned the screw a fraction of an inch clockwise. The engine coughed, then sputtered louder. Wrong way. He closed his eyes, picturing his grandfather's weathered hands, the way he'd listen intently. He turned the screw back, this time counterclockwise, a barely perceptible movement. The engine's rhythm shifted, the harsh cough softening into a smoother rumble. He adjusted again, a minuscule fraction, his brow furrowed in concentration. His knuckles were white as he gripped the screwdriver. The engine smoothed out further, the rattling subsiding into a steady purr. A bead of sweat trickled down Leo's temple as he made one final, tiny adjustment. His breath caught in his throat. The Fairlane idled perfectly, a low, contented growl emanating from its exhaust. He tightened the locking nut, his heart pounding in his chest. Relief washed over him, leaving him weak in the knees. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. He straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag, a genuine smile finally breaking through. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't such a bad mechanic after all. The engine roars. Leo wiped his greasy hands on a rag, the scent of gasoline and frustration thick in the air. He stared at the exposed carburetor, a metallic maze he'd been wrestling with for days. Doubt nodded him. This Fairlane was a beast, a beautiful one, but a beast nonetheless. Maybe he was out of his depth. Clara leaned against the workbench, her silhouette framed by the dim garage light. She hadn't said much since arriving, just observing him with those knowing eyes. Are you ready? She finally asked, her voice soft, almost a whisper. He hesitated. Almost. Just. Give me a minute. He tweaked a screw, tightened a clamp, the metal cold against his calloused fingers. He was buying time, stalling the inevitable moment of truth. Leo, she said, pushing herself off the workbench. She walked towards him, the click of her heels echoing in the confined space. I know you can do this. I wouldn't have brought her to you if I didn't believe in you. Her words were a quiet balm, easing the sting of his self-doubt. He met her gaze, seeing not just faith, but also a deep weariness etched around her eyes, lines that spoke of sleepless nights and unspoken burdens. He knew this car meant more to her than just transportation. He took a deep breath, the smell of oil suddenly less offensive, more like a familiar comfort. He slid into the driver's seat, the worn leather creaking beneath him. He inserted the key into the ignition. The familiar click as it turned to the on position was a small victory in itself. He glanced at Clara, who stood a few feet away, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. He offered a small, tight smile, then turned the key the rest of the way. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then, with a mighty roar, it burst to life. The garage vibrated with the sound, the air thick with the scent of burning gasoline and hot metal. It wasn't a smooth purr yet, more of a guttural growl, but it was alive. It was running. Leo felt a surge of adrenaline, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He revved the engine, the sound echoing off the walls, a symphony of mechanical resurrection. Clara gasped, her eyes wide with astonishment. A genuine smile bloomed on her face, chasing away the shadows of weariness. You did it, she breathed, her voice barely audible above the engine's thunderous roar. A ring and a partnership. The wrench slipped in Leo's greasy hand, banging against the stubborn carburetor. He swore under his breath, the metallic tang of gasoline heavy in the air. Doubt, a familiar companion these last few weeks, nodded him. He'd been at this Fairlane for days, longer than he'd quoted Clara. Longer than he could afford. Clara Beaumont appeared in the doorway of the garage, a silhouette against the late afternoon sun. Dust motes danced in the golden light that framed her. Leo? He grunted in acknowledgement, not looking up. She stepped inside, the scent of her perfume, something floral and sophisticated, a stark contrast to the pervasive oil and metal. I just wanted to thank you. Again. Leo finally straightened, wiping his hands on a rag already thick with grime. Haven't fixed it yet. But you will. I know you will. Her voice held a quiet confidence that surprised him. This car, it belonged to my father. It was the only thing he left me. I can't explain how much it means to me to see someone actually trying to bring it back to life. He saw it then, not just gratitude, but a deeper weariness etched around her eyes. The kind that came from carrying burdens unseen. Clara took a step closer, her gaze steady. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, she revealed a ring, a platinum band set with a single, exquisite sapphire. I know I'm probably not paying you enough, Leo. This should cover the rest. Leo stared at the ring, the sapphire catching the light and throwing off sparks of blue. It was worth more than his entire garage. I can't. Please, she said, her voice tight. I want you to have it. He shook his head gently but firmly. I can't take your ring, Clara. It's too much. The thought of profiting from her vulnerability felt wrong. She closed the box, her fingers lingering on the velvet. Then what are we going to do? I don't have much more cash to offer. He hesitated, an idea forming in his mind. A crazy, improbable idea. I've got an idea. How about this? How about a partnership? Clara's brow furrowed. A partnership? What do you mean? I'm good with engines, but I'm terrible at the business side of things. You seem to know what you're doing. He gestured around the cluttered garage. I fix the cars, you find the customers. We split the profits. The weariness in her eyes seemed to recede, replaced by something akin to cautious hope. You really think that would work? Leo met her gaze, his own doubt momentarily banished. I think it's worth a shot. He reached out, offering his hand. What do you say, Clara Beaumont? Partner. Gearsville's best. Leo muttered a curse, the obstinate carburetor a gleaming, brassy puzzle mocking his efforts. Clara's fair lane, a faded seafoam dream, filled the garage bay, a silent accusation of his mechanical ineptitude. Doubt, a cold serpent, coiled in his gut. Could he even manage this? What if he failed her? A shadow fell across his workbench. Clara offered him a steaming mug. Coffee? Her voice, a gentle balm, eased his frustration. He accepted the warmth, his fingers aching. Thanks. This thing is a real headache. A ghost of a smile touched Clara's lips, shadowed by concern. Dad always said she had a will of her own. Like him, I suspect. She idly fingered a wrench. Need a hand. Leo hesitated. He was a solitary creature in his element, wrestling mechanical demons in his own fashion. But there was something resolute in her gaze, a quiet eagerness. Actually, he conceded. Maybe you could steady this while I attack this stubborn screw. And so they labored. A team forged in grease and necessity. Clara, surprisingly nimble, absorbed his instructions like a sponge. She learned the nomenclature of each component, the subtle feel of different threads, anticipating his needs with uncanny intuition. The air, thick with the reek of gasoline and oil, hummed with a comfortable quiet, punctuated by the metallic symphony of tools and murmured directions. News rippled through Gearville. A woman not just observing, but actively participating in the grimy ballet of auto repair? Unheard of. Yet something compelling drew them in. People witnessed the meticulous care they lavished on each vehicle, the integrity of their transactions, the genuine affection for breathing life back into these iron horses. A trickle of customers became a steady stream. A battered pickup yearning for a fuel pump transplant. A bulky motorcycle plagued by phantom electrical gremlins. With each conquered challenge, their reputation grew, brick by greasy brick. Soon, Leo's once desolate garage, a monument to his stalled aspirations, throbbed with life. Vehicles choked the street, awaiting their turn on the lift. Maxwell and Beaumont declared the sign above the door, Clara's elegant script a counterpoint to Leo's functional block letters. It was a collaboration built on mutual respect, fueled by relentless work and tempered with a shared passion for the deep-throated roar of a finely tuned engine. One twilight, after an especially grueling day, they perched on overturned milk crates, sharing a pizza. The dying sun cast long, dancing shadows across the floor. Leo recounted an epic battle with a recalcitrant fuel injector, Clara interjecting with her astute observations. Suddenly, a laugh erupted from Leo, a genuine, booming sound that shook his frame. Clara echoed his mirth, her laughter like wind chimes, a melody he cherished. It wasn't simply the absurdity of the fuel injector, it was the sheer improbability of their reality, two unlikely allies transforming a dilapidated garage into Gearsville's premier shop, bolt by painstaking bolt. In that instant, enveloped by the tools of their trade and the Fairlane's comforting presence, Leo realized they had created something extraordinary. It was more than a business, it was a bond, a testament to the transformative power of kindness, and a promise that even the most cantankerous engines and the most wounded spirits could find restoration.